Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Beyond the Rift by Peter Watts. Is this dystopian sci-fi horror perfection? Let's find out. So Peter Watts is a Canadian sci-fi author. He is also a marine mammal biologist. This is a collection of short stories. Now, this is probably the best way to get into any author is reading their short stories, because usually you can get a sort of a good glimpse of how they write, and this one definitely wins. There are some great short stories in here. I'm going to sort of cover the one that I love the most, and a couple of the other ones that I went through that I just adored. But yeah, this is a wonderful collection of sci-fi sort of... He sort of barks at the word dystopian in the prologue to this. He pretty much writes stories that are sort of hard science based, set in the near future after several environmental collapses or catastrophes have happened, and sort of science run amok and the world run amok. So yeah, let's get into these stories. So the story that jumped out at me the most, and this is actually why I read this in the first place, was recommended by my older brother. It's called The Things, and it is a short story retelling of John Carpenter's The Thing, but from the point of view of the monster. So you sort of see the monster's why it's doing what it's doing, why it's trying to survive, how it explains its own sort of way it lives, and how the biology of it works. It is a fantastic short story. I 100% recommend, even if you get a chance, just to read that one particular story, The Things. If you love John Carpenter's The Thing, then yes, you should read this story for sure. The next story that I really enjoyed in this was called Nimbus, and it's following sort of a father and daughter sort of trying to rebond, but it's set in a world where storms themselves and clouds have sort of developed an intelligence, and they wreak havoc against mankind. So sort of Earth fighting back against human encroachment. It has got some really neat sort of ideas of how we're killing the planet, some ways quickly, some ways slowly, but how humans are sort of, not the best for Earth as the way we are currently living. So this is, it's Earth fighting back, essentially. And it's a fantastic little read about these killer clouds and killer storms, and how people are sort of living with that. The next one that I really enjoyed was called A Word for Heathens. This one is sort of following a pretty much a warrior for God who is just slaughtering people using some sort of divine spell cast on themselves. They're wearing technology that sort of stimulates, it's like magnetics that stimulate the brain that cause you to have euphoric godlike visions. So it's following sort of one of these warriors who is killing for God, and he's brutal. He's like just burning people alive and smashing them to pieces, and it's just horrific. But you're sort of following him as they sort of say that he is now possessed, and he has to be rid of evils within him, even though he thinks he's doing God's work. But it's all fake. So it's fantastic, a really great story. And lastly, one of my other favorite stories is called Ambassador. It is a first contact story, but this is pretty much it's an AI ship that is traveling through space. It encounters this sort of being out in space that looks kind of like a tree with tentacles. He tries saying hello to it, and it immediately attacks and tries to kill it. So the AI piloting the ship sort of, warps out of there and tries to get away, and then slowly this thing is following them. So it sort of delves into like humans' position in the universe and whether or not we should actually be exploring. Whether the default, that everybody is sort of a peaceful spacefaring civilization is not true, and sort of like once you get into spacefaring position, you realize that everything is hostile, so everything is hostile. So it's sort of weighing those options. There's a lot of sort of philosophy and sort of your moralistic, how you're going to approach things in these stories, which I really enjoy, and they're fun to read. And then lastly, the outro for this book is actually the author's personal account of him getting involved with the American justice system. From what I can gather, he got stopped at the Canadian border while coming back from the States. He sort of questioned something that happened to him from one of the officers there, and they immediately attacked him, and he ended up having to go to court about it, and it's a ridiculous story, and I can't believe this kind of stuff happens, but it does. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. The American justice system is messed up. So yeah, a good way to end this is just him talking about how his viewpoint in his stories is dystopian sci-fi, but he's actually more of an optimist. He tries to think of the good things that can happen, even though he's kind of left with a world like the way the world is today is leaving us with no choice but to be dystopian, which is brutally sad. And yeah, you don't want to you'll start crying if you think about that too much. I know I will. So hence I delve into books. But yes, that little outro talking about his experience there and going to jail. He actually found some books to read while in jail, which I thought was humorous. But he's not allowed back into the States anytime soon because of that. Okay, so that's it. Again, it's Peter Watts, Beyond the Rift. I do highly recommend this book. If you have any interest in science fiction and you like horror, this is one of those authors that you could sort of work your way into, because the dystopian nature of his works, as well as The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, fanfic in this is fantastic. So yeah, I would give this a shot. It's well worth it. Plus he's Canadian, so I like to support Canadian authors. And yeah, that's about it. Okay, that's it for the day. I will talk to you guys later, and hopefully you're not crying. Talk to you. Bye.